In a time where the UFC could be found in the adult video section of Blockbuster, a money laundering operation for the Yakuza in Japan got the quiet respect of 45,000 fans for the first Pride event on October 11, 1997 at the Tokyo Dome. For context, in 2024, the most popular arena for the UFC is the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, which holds under half that at 20,000. Those 45,000 fans and those watching at home didn't know at the time, but they were watching the foundation get laid for the craziest MMA promotion in history. Today is not only the start of my new channel, but I hope to capture the hype of what many call the golden age of MMA by watching every event of Pride in order for this series. Please like and subscribe so you get notified when future episodes of the series come out. Now, before we jump into the first fight, there are some things to keep in mind. Especially in the first few Pride events, they had a lot of future and current pro wrestling stars on these cards. So while some fights were real, you could tell some had the qualities of pro wrestling matches. Pride 1 was really important because it had very few rules, just like UFC 1. But many of the rules like yellow cards and stand-ups definitely originated from this card, and I'll explain why in a bit. Now, to get into the first fight ever to take place in Pride, between Japan's Murakami Kusanari and John Dixon from the US. Pride was known for their matches with large weight discrepancies, and that started here with Kusanari weighing in at 209 and Dixon at 275, which would be a 10-pound weight miss in modern day heavyweights. This fight took place a year before Kusanari started his professional wrestling career, and it was pretty obvious that this was a tryout of sorts. We might have to give him the benefit of the doubt because grappling was still such a large unknown, but after easily pushing the bigger man off of him and hitting a beautiful hip throw early in the fight, he landed some cartoonish wind-up punches before dramatically setting up an armbar just like you would on your friend in the basement after watching your first MMA fight. Dixon quickly tapped and the first Pride fight was over in about 90 seconds. The second fight on the card, which was probably the first actual fight in Pride, took place against Oleg, Tarov, and Gary Goodridge. Unfortunately, Goodridge left the iconic black gi at home. Oleg won the UFC 6 tournament and Goodridge was a finalist in UFC 8, so for this time, this was a world-class heavyweight fight. Unfortunately, Oleg thought that 2 months at the famous Wildcard Boxing Club with Freddie Roach would turn him into a striker that could compete with a high-level kickboxer. The dream Oleg had of looking like a professional boxer stopped at the shorts he wore. In under a minute, he started getting lit up with big shots that knocked him down and did two things for Pride. One, it produced the first ever soccer kick, and two, it showed why stand-ups are very important. Gary Goodridge did not want to engage too much on the floor with Oleg, and Oleg did not want to stand up to give Gary free shots, so he sat there and ate a soccer kick, which the camera somehow missed. What followed was a weird stalemate that took Oleg way too long to get to his feet. When he did, he shot for a takedown that was easily defended by Goodridge, and Oleg was put to sleep when he desperately was reaching for a clinch. The third fight would change the course of jiu-jitsu forever. It took place between Henzo Gracie and Akira Shoji. Shoji forgot that this wasn't a professional wrestling match. He used the ropes to defend takedowns, and when that didn't work, he slid out of the ring to reset the match, and it actually worked. And you can also see him grabbing the ropes to try to break submissions, just like in pro wrestling. Henzo showed dominance on the ground throughout the 3 rounds, but kept sliding off close submission attempts like the armbar in round 3. This fight was also filled with even longer stalling moments that lasted minutes in most of the rounds. I feel like this fight is the reason they introduced yellow cards and why Pride is so notorious for standing up people so quickly, so we don't have two people staring at each other because someone doesn't want to engage. The fight was a draw for some reason, but what would change BJJ forever was a subtle variation of Henzo's guard when he would pull the leg higher up to the head and attempted to isolate an arm instead of traditional Gracie Jiu-Jitsu where he would chain the armbar triangle and omoplata to look for the sub or the sweep. Later in the fight, Henzo would use the same tactic to make Shoji think about the sub before sweeping him to mount. This changed the game because Eddie Bravo would take this high guard and create the infamous rubber guard system, which is based around the high guard Henzo utilized in this first Pride match. Ironically, this would be the system that Eddie would use to be the first one to ever submit a Gracie in competition at 80cc 2003. The next fight took place between two giants, 345-pound Nathan Jones and 390-pound Mitsuharu Kitao. Kateo was banned from sumo for accidentally breaking the arm of a wife of another sumo wrestler. He was the highest rank you could achieve in sumo at that time. After Jones threw some flashy, explosive PED-fueled shots at Kateo, Kateo would get the takedown and Jones started groaning in pain from the pressure alone.
He's got a lot of weight to carry.
Nathan Jones, by the sounds,
Kateo got the Americana, and before he could even get real pressure on it, Jones tapped just from being laid on. The next fight was actually a stand-up only fight, and this is the only fight I've ever seen fought with the Bruce Lee style training gloves. The fight took place between Ralph White and Branco. Ironically, after a slip by Ralph in the stand-up only fight, Branco delivered the second ever soccer kick in Pride. This time it ended the fight because it was an illegal strike. Ralph left the ring with a large hematoma and it cut off there and no result was shown. The next fight between Kimo Leopoldo and Dan Severn was one of the only fights I've ever seen where traditionally respectful and silent Japanese crowd booed the worst striking and staring match you've ever seen.
I don't know what they say now. People are getting rowdy.
Dan was slapboxing into failed takedown attempts, and Kimo wasn't doing much to push the action due to the threat of the takedown. This would go on before Dan got a takedown in the last 30 seconds of a 20-minute fight. It was ruled a draw, and it was one of the biggest reasons Pride brought in the yellow card. Because the Yakuza does not give you money in a paper bag for a fight like that. The main event was Rickson Gracie versus Takada, who was a pro wrestler. Rickson came out looking like a stiff Conor McGregor, and he was using oblique kicks before John Jones got his first DUI. They broke up a clinch as Rickson was going for a takedown against the Japanese star. Rickson would finally get a takedown against him, and he would easily get the mount and easily get the armbar against his opponent, like he was teaching a kids class how to do it. Pride 1 was a historic event that set the foundation for Pride, but you can see why the rules were put in place. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to get notifications for the next video. Not only will I be covering every single event within Pride, but I'll also be covering vintage boxing, the old Valley Tudo tournaments, and stuff for modern MMA and boxing. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.